Tonight, the clash over Republican voter suppression efforts continues. Backlash to Georgia's new law has pitted the state against mounting criticism from corporate America. And now top Republicans punching back to that, attacking some corporations, threatening to use congressional power to punish Major League Baseball, and even digging into a wider attack on what they call woke corporations. Now, when you think about it, this is interesting. It's actually a major departure from the party's traditional alliance with corporate America, from running a former financial executive as the party's nominee to embracing the Wall Street orthodoxy of free markets, prosperity, and even really greed. For the Republican Party has long mixed its actual policies with a devotion to the kind of the boss swagger of Wall Street, a place where people like Gordon Gekko, who you remember from the movie Wall Street, on his big phone, would proudly argue that capitalism is not just something that pays the bills, but rather it's a mindset that may save America itself.
Point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. And greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar Paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA. Thank you very much.
Now that's what a real Republican used to sound like. So it's striking to see this party now claiming to wage war on business leaders themselves. But it turns out, as so often is the case, there is more to this story. Long before the Georgia clash, some House Republican leaders were privately strategizing about how they could make the GOP appear to be more of a, quote, working class party, with an internal memo planning for ways to seize seemingly cultural crusades and remix them to show that the GOP is not pro-corporation. Now, English majors may notice the awkward phrasing, not pro, but the premise is clear. Republicans know they're already seen by many as pro-corporation, but that brand is suddenly less appealing right now, with the 1% raking in billions amidst a punishing recession and a deadly pandemic and food lines, and against a new Democratic president who's pushed out quickly these stimulus checks and who seems to be standing up to corporations on some issues. So there are two noticeable ways top Republicans have been rebranding these stances. Those woke crusades, which are really mostly vapid posturing, and then the issue of trade, where there's been a bit more substance. On trade, the party has shifted from backing all corporate interests in all trade deals around the world, essentially, to some more skepticism. Now, whatever you think of the last president's integrity, it's interesting because as a marketer, he did have an eye on what works for sales. And he realized that constantly siding with corporations over workers was a loser even for the Republican Party. Trump basically going a little bit Bernie Sanders and flipping a generation of Republican policy on its head for international trade agreements.
By opening up markets, by having us treated fairly, we'll have 100 million new customers.
My position has always been we want to have free trade, but fair trade.
If all we do is sell things to each other, we can only sell to 5% of the people on Earth.
Balanced budget,
which is the single worst trade deal ever approved in this country. We have successfully completed negotiations on a brand new deal to terminate and replace NAFTA.
So Republicans did break with some corporate preferences on trade policy. But lately they're making all this noise about attacking corporations that take just any position they oppose, like on voting rights or diversity. And some of the Republicans' loudest anti-corporate moves, I want you to keep this in mind, it really boils down to politicians trying to tell companies, well, they shouldn't speak out against voter suppression or against the Republican Party, which matches the internal memo advising the party pick corporate fights over this alleged wokeness.
We have seen the rise of the woke corporation. These woke corporations have decided to become the political enforcer for Democrats in Washington.
It means cancel culture and partisan activists are coming for your business. They're coming for your game or event in your hometown. And they're coming to cancel everything from sports to how you make a living.
Sounds scary. But what is this really about? This matters if it's going to be a new turf war, particularly if it relates to voting rights. And is this really even about policy towards corporations at all? Well, Obama campaign veteran and friend of the beat, Che Komanduri, says it's actually more of an effort to cram pre-existing GOP priorities into the posture of standing up to corporations, which, as I mentioned, is more popular these days. Republicans try to go to war against corporations, he says, advocating diversity, for example, those kind of corporations, the same way Republicans used to wage these family values campaigns from the 90s. Komanduri points to Vice President Quayle's infamous attack on CBS and its show Murphy Brown because her character was a single mom. Now, I know, depending on how far back you remember, that sounds absurd, but it's literally what happened. Quayle picked this fight against a media corporation because he said they were supporting her and she shouldn't choose to raise a child alone as an unmarried woman.
It doesn't help matters when primetime TV has Murphy Brown, a character who supposedly epitomizes today's intelligent, highly paid professional woman, mocking the importance of fathers by bearing a child alone and calling it just another lifestyle choice.
Well, Republicans were right about one thing on that. The fight really stood out. It was front page news. And picking on that media corporation found the character herself responding within the show.
I doubt that my status as a single mother has contributed all that much to the breakdown of Western civilization. Unfortunately, it seems that for him, the only acceptable definition of a family is a mother, a father, and children. And in a country where millions of children grow up in non-traditional families, that definition seems painfully unfair.
How about that? The fictional Murphy Brown stance has aged far better than Quayle's. And Komanduri argues that then as now, these are Republican smokescreens, so they can play act a kind of a fight with elite corporations or media while they largely still do corporate bidding when it comes to the money. The Republicans claiming to fight woke corporations this week are against many corporations paying any more of their fair share during the recession. They oppose Biden's hike for a corporate tax rate. They also actually cut that further in the Trump era, just like they cut corporate regulations, some of which protect regular citizens or the environment. And these woke crusaders, well, they've been there for every corporate handout. So other than trade, which is one important side note, the evidence shows this pitch to become a working class party for the Republicans is more of a PR blitz on culture than substantive populism. So that's a lot right there. But I got one final piece of hypocrisy on this issue when it comes to the top Republican left in Washington, Mitch McConnell. He famously led this crusade all the way to the Supreme Court, arguing corporations should have First Amendment rights to speak and to spend however they choose.
The court decision said was that under the First Amendment, every corporation in America should be free to participate in the political process, not just the ones that own newspapers and television stations.
Free to participate in the political process. That was McConnell then, but free to participate unless, according to McConnell today, these corporations take a position that he opposes, like supporting voting rights. And that's why Mitch McConnell very publicly tied himself in some knots over this reversal.
Every corporation in America should be free to participate in the political process. My warning, if you will, to corporate America is to stay out of politics. It's not what you're designed for. If I were running a major corporation, I'd stay out of politics. I didn't say that very artfully yesterday. They're certainly entitled to be involved in politics.
As the saying goes, Mitch, congratulations, you played yourself. And he's one of several Republicans finding that when your working class agenda is mostly play acting, it's very easy to end up playing yourself over and over. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.